Childhood for me was great. Hell, it still is to a degree. I still feel like I'm somewhat like a child in some ways. Especially when I'm around my own child. That's when I really get to kind of like live out my childhood again. Like they said, you can relive your childhood, precariously through your own children. In a healthy way, of course. Not in a way where you're trying to cover up, your own like personal childhood trauma issues, but in a healthy way. Now, that being said, I try my best to keep a keen ear to what's going on in, children marketing, children TV shows, those industries, know what's going on in the loop to, know what my kid likes and, who these characters are and so forth, like I'm Dylan and, TV shows like that. So when I see this article and video about employees at Disney protesting a bill that will harm kids, my spidey sense went all the way up. Now, the protesters had signs and chants that say, "Don't say gay." So immediately, I was on the assumption that Florida's passing some type of legislation that was pushing some kind of homosexual education, onto our kids. But not so. I clicked on a few links and read the bill myself, at least a synopsis, just to get the gist of the bill, what's really about and so forth. Bills tend to be, pretty lengthy. And this was another example of the duplicity of our mainstream media. It was the other way around. Florida was trying to pass legislation to not allow children, from kindergarten to third grade, be taught about sexual orientation or gender identity. And that means don't say gay? No. That means don't confuse my kids. Now look, we all know, at least I thought most people did, that the younger the child, the more impressionable they are. Therefore, it's easy to confuse them or mislead them. They don't need to learn about, this whole sexual orientation, gender identity, and so forth at such a young age, in my opinion. What they need to learn about is the ABCs and 1, 2, 3s, math, science, things of that nature. So the outrage to me is appalling. But once again, the outrage is due to misinformation. I mean, look at how these kids at a network rally in New York are saying about the bill.
They're chanting, "We say gay," in direct opposition to new legislation coming out of Florida that's being dubbed the Don't Say Gay bill. The bill forbids instruction of sexual orientation and gender identity in kindergarten through third grade, something these high school students can't fathom.
It's crazy that they actually made a law that says that you can't say the word gay in school, which is insane.
It's really crazy that people can tell you what not to say, especially when it has such an effect on a whole community.
Community and acceptance, really what this gathering is all about. High school students from New York City and Long Island attending the LGBT Network Youth Program annual event. The event today at Citi Field, and the first time that it's been held in person since the pandemic. And many say it feels good to be here.
I kind of just want more gay friends, and I think this is a good place to make more friends.
There are lectures and breakout sessions and workshops to empower these young people.
So once again, nowhere in the bill it says you can't say gay. And if a child that's in kindergarten to third grade are suffering or having, issues with their gender identity, they can go to their parents. Simple. What's wrong with that? The issues and problems are not being ignored. They're still being addressed. And if anything, they'll be addressed by a person who has more invested into the child than the school. This to me has nothing to do about gender identity or the whole thing about sexual orientation, but more about how the schools, through the Department of Education and state local boards, they basically can be influenced by corporations and the mainstream media, because they're influenced by those things to further indoctrinate our kids with very little to no pushback from the parents and our guardians. I mean, they keep talking about safe spaces for children. If anything, the best safe space for a child should be home with their parents and their guardians, the loved ones. Now, if there's unfortunate circumstances where a child doesn't have a safe space at home with their, their loved ones, their parents and so forth, then that's when the school could step in and use their resources to give to the child. Like, for instance, this, God forbid, there be some type of abuse. They got CPS, counselors. Some schools are affiliated with churches and other type of like outreach programs that are out there that are still affiliated with school. There's a lot of resources for these teachers and administrators to give to a child who, God forbid, are not able to have a quote unquote safe space at home with their parents and their guardians. So basically, outside of this, there are other alternatives for a child to have these issues addressed besides through the school and teachers. But this is one of those slippery slopes that was cause serious damaging issues if the right parameters are not put into play. Because if the schools can now arbitrarily, at their own discretion, talk and teach about, gender identity, sexual orientation, don't be surprised that your kids are more confused when they come back from school than when they went to school, because we all know that confusion causes chaos.